I am going to do whatever I can personally to try to prevent these abuses in the future. And if it means going to court, I will do that. I have seen the lights blinking red in terms of what Mr. Trump has done and is doing. I think I need to speak out. And so I've been speaking out rather forcefully because I believe it's important to do so. I don't believe I'm being political at all.
That's the funny part right there. Let's bring in Newt Gingrich, Fox News contributor, former Speaker of the House. He ran for president and the author of Trump's America, out now. Mr. Speaker, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Well, why do you think so many Republicans are going after John Brennan? He just admitted, he said, I don't think I'm political at all. What's your problem with him?
Well, my problem with him is he's totally out of touch with reality. I mean, how would you like to have a director of Central Intelligence so lacking in common sense that he thinks he can write a tweet accusing the President of the United States of the equivalent of treason, high crimes and misdemeanors, and then explain that he's really not political? Look, John Brennan is totally political. He was basically a toady to President Obama. He participated in lying to the American people about what happened in Libya and Benghazi. And frankly, Brennan should never have been director of the Central Intelligence. And it's a little disheartening to watch the old boys club get together and write a collective letter, which they did this weekend, in defending Brennan. There is no natural right to retain your security clearance. The president has every right to set up a procedure for repealing it. And in the case of Brennan, his public activities, I think, more than justify repealing it. Finally, he was the head of the CIA during the period they claimed the Russians were engaged in trying to affect the election. Why isn't Brennan a little humbled by his total failure?
Absolutely. If he opened up with, I felt as though I dropped the ball for the American people and failed, as we have heard people say in the past when they have failed, he failed. Now, a couple of things. I get the sense that we have not fully looked into what Brennan did and didn't do leading up to the Russia part of this investigation and why Trump was being investigated. Why was the FBI dealing with Christopher Steele? What did he know about this, the whole dossier leading up? He acted oblivious. I remember Trey Gowdy's question about when he first found out about it. My sense is that those people who are running to his defense might just be pretty embarrassed shortly.
Look, I think part of what you see here is desperation. When you look at certain Obama-era people, they know that, in fact, they're at the heart of this. I think it's reasonable to guess, and it's a guess right now because we don't have the data, that, in fact, it was Brennan's CIA which led the FBI to the dossier in Britain, and that, in fact, the people were tied closer to the CIA than they were to the FBI. But the deeper point's this. It is an open and shut case with zero question that Brennan was engaged in lying to the American people about Benghazi, knew that everything they were saying was a lie, went along with the lie, and that's why you have the sickness that you have at the heart of our establishment. These people were all willing to lie to the country and in return for whatever political games they were playing. And they all thought they'd be protected because they all thought Hillary'd win and Hillary'd take care of them. And they're all terrified because the more we learn, the worse they look.
Well, this will come to light. Let's talk about the midterms. Senator Kristen Gillibrand, there's talk that she could be running for president in 2020. She's been really outspoken lately. She was on Face the Nation yesterday, and she was saying that she thinks that 2018, the midterms, are going to be a referendum on Trump. Listen to this.
I think what happens in November is going to decide what our country looks like. I think this election is a referendum on President Trump, on the fact that he doesn't represent most Americans, that his values don't line up with most Americans, and so being heard in this election sets the stage for everything in the future.
Do you agree with that his values don't line up with most Americans?
Listen, I think we could have a great debate if our choice is between Gillibrand and Trump. She is for open borders. She is for sanctuary cities. She is against ICE. She represents an absolute total turnaround on gun control. She used to be pro-NRA when she was an upstate New York congresswoman. Once she became a statewide New York senator, she became anti-gun. I think you go down the list of what she believes in, and that's about 30% of the country. So if I were Trump, I'd say willingly, let's have a debate over these two sets of values. He likes lower taxes and more jobs. She likes higher taxes and more food stamps. Pretty clear choice.
Right.
He
Mr.
likes
Speaker?
conservative judges. She likes radical judges.
Right. Mr. Speaker, you know better than anybody what it's like to run for Congress, and you've gone through midterm cycles as well. During a midterm cycle, do people vote for their national representatives for Congress, and in some cases Senate, based on the president or based on that actual representative?
I think there's a tremendous impact in every election now because of the nature of the country. You guys are in 435 congressional districts every morning. So you can't talk about a purely localized election because the waves of things really matter. And that's why I think, for example, that the story on Sunday was so important, that Don McGahn, the White House counsel, had spent 30 hours giving briefings to Mueller's staff with no executive privilege, no presidential client confidentiality. And I have a piece that will come out at Fox News later on today saying this is the end of the Mueller investigation. You can't reasonably ask for more than 30 hours of the White House counsel, find nothing, and claim you need to keep looking. So I think what you're going to see is by this fall,
but we don't know if he found
investigative
anything.
Stuff will be gone.
Mr. Speaker, we don't know what he found. How do we know what he found?
Well, we do know from the Don McGahn said flatly he saw nothing that the president did that was in any way illegal. And if you have the top lawyer who has testified openly for 30 hours, I think it says that there's nothing there for Mueller or he would have done something. And his entire investigation, I think, in terms of why he was picked, is a total bust. I mean, we see no evidence of any kind of collusion, certainly no evidence that the president did anything wrong. The reason I think that matters is when that disappears, if you are the average American and you've been led by the elite media for 2 years to believe that there was something terrible here, and it all goes away, I think suddenly Trump looks dramatically more acceptable, dramatically more plausible. And I think he ought to accept Gillibrand's challenge. Let's have this an election, a choice this fall between hard left values, socialism, government-run health care, and what President Trump is trying to do. I think he wins that by a big margin.
But he's got to finish up by September 1st or go dark, or else he's going to affect the election, and he's got to be responsible about that. Thanks so much, Newt Gingrich.
Thank you.
Good to be with you.